And we are live. Hey, peeps! Thanks so much for hanging out and waiting for us. Forgive me. I am not in my usual place, and I had a little bit of technical difficulties connecting from my hotel room. But we are here, and I am so excited to introduce you guys, if you don't know him already, to my very special guest, Zach Hanks. Hey, Zach! Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
I am so excited to talk to you today about characters and character creation, because you will be joining us in 3 weeks. I just determined that 3 weeks for a class that you're going to be teaching the peeps. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about, first of all, tell us a little bit about your day-to-day VO-ness in this industry and what you do, and a little bit about the importance of creating characters in voiceover.
Okay. Well, now, let me just start with my background, I guess. I am an actor by training and trade, and that was most of my 20s was regional theater and bumbling around Los Angeles for 3 years, trying to make heads and tails of the place. Graduate school and some dabbling in film work and stuff like that. And then I ended up directing voiceovers for video games as an employee of a voiceover production company that specialized in games. And I did that for about 2 years and dropped out of performing for, like, I had just finished my MFA like 6 months before, and then I dropped out of performing for 2 years. But it was the best thing for my career and for my work, and it introduced me to a whole new community that I had only sort of dipped my toe in the water of up to that point, and provided me with new insights and skills into an industry that and a type of work that I had very little exposure to, but that I really, really, would love to do and had an aptitude for, being a lifelong gamer and geek. So since I would say for about the last 10 years, the bulk of my work has been voiceover, either performing, directing, or coaching, teaching, and mentoring. And I made most of my career, or I built my career in Los Angeles, working in commercials, video games, and a little bit of animation primarily. And then spent 4 years as a professor in East Texas. And now I'm back in my hometown of Atlanta with my wife and my son, and making a go of it here. So that's sort of my background. Do you want me to transition into the video game acting character work?
Yes, actually that would be great, because you're very well known for some of your roles in some very popular video games.
I'm grateful to have had those opportunities. It's I'm a very, very minor geek celebrity as a result, and that's been kind of fun. I mean, it's the always weird thing about, being a voice actor who has characters that are well known is no one knows who you are, but everyone knows who you've played, which is kind of a surreal experience. So as far as character creation goes and acting for games, I approach this work, both acting and this idea of, and I'm using finger quotes here intentionally, character creation, from a very different angle than is traditionally done, I think, by many of my colleagues and other directors and other coaches. And I didn't always approach it in this different way. It's this different paradigm of how to approach acting and character work is something that sort of culminated as a result of getting my feet grounded in theater, and then facing the unique challenges of video game character voice recording, and then having to put all that together into an acting method to teach in my years at a university. And that all sort of coalesced in some perspectives that at best are different, and at worst, or at scariest, are kind of heretical. But I've kind of owned my heresy, or apostasy. I don't remember. I was raised Catholic, and I don't remember what the word is. But let me see if I can sum it up as briefly as I can. And here's where the heresy begins. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I preface my approach with basically two kind of inciting statements, and they're meant to incite. But they sound horrible to say. And the first one is, everything you think you know about acting is wrong. And what an obnoxious thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, I have found very often that that's kind of the case. And I don't mean it from a, standing on high, looking down my nose at other people and other methods and, the established ways of working. But I have found that, at least from my perspective, my understanding of what an actor does, not in these sort of impressionistic, ambiguous, but kind of beautiful phrases we use, like, oh, acting is being, and and all those sorts of things, which sort of talk around the idea of what we do, but don't concretely describe exactly what we do from moment to moment. I find them insufficient at best and useless at worst. So what I spent my time when I was teaching at a university doing was trying to come up with a way to explain to my students, what is it that we're really doing? So that's one of the things. That's really the primary takeaway, I think, from this workshop that we're going to do together, is establishing what it is that an actor really does, so that people can walk away with a process of steps where there is no question about what it is you're supposed to do from prep through execution. Now, the other inciting statement is that though this word character makes sense and is useful from a literary perspective, that is to say, I'm just throwing a number out here, there are 18 characters in Macbeth. That statement is true. I mean, not really. I don't remember how many characters are in Macbeth. But to make that kind of a statement is true. Macbeth is a character, Banquo is a character, the witches are 3 characters, and boom. But the use of this word character, when we talk about what an actor does, that an actor creates a character, I argue that, concretely speaking, that's not true. And it's also not possible. That when I perform, whether I'm performing a soldier in Call of Duty that sounds basically like the way I'm talking, or a role on Criminal Minds where the character basically walks, talks, and sounds like I do in life, or an orc with a transformed face and delivery and accent and everything's changed and all that sort of thing. While we can use the impressionistic, kind of ambiguous language of, oh, I've created a character, but literally, concretely, that's not actually what I'm doing. And I can't. Mm-hmm. What I would argue that I'm doing with, at least with the orc character, is I'm modifying how I hold my jaw. I'm modifying the shape and muscularity of my vocal tract to change the sounds that come out. I'm substituting the sounds of the accent I usually have, which is General American with some notes of Great Lakes in there from my upstate New York family, with a sort of stereotype Cockney soccer hooligan mode of speech. And then I'm given a script with a series of lines, and then whatever action the author of the script would have me perform in that line, I perform that action, and I perform it as if it were real, and I do it using the vocal modifications. Mm-hmm. And that's not magic. It's not spiritual. Mm-hmm. It's not mystical. And here's the kicker about character, and this is sort of my attempt at a proof that that actors don't create characters, that what audiences perceive as a character is something that the actor and audience, they do in tandem, but that without the audience, this idea of character cannot exist. And therefore, if it can't exist without an audience, and the actor can't do it alone without an observer, then the actor can't do it at all. That there's something else going on. And here's the argument I usually present, and then I promise I'll stop. If I'm let's say let's say you're performing on a stage, and you're wearing a costume. There's the lighting. You've modified the way you walk. You've modified the way you talk, and your voice is slightly modified. And of course, you're performing the actions that the character, in a literary sense, is performing in the show. And the audience comes and they see these sort of modifications that you've made, and they are watching you as the character go through the actions of the script. And you do it with great skill. You're very believable. You're also very compelling. You're very committed to the stakes of each moment. And the audience perceives you as a character. The audience is bringing something to the table that you as an actor cannot bring. And it's essential for this thing we think of as character to exist. And that thing, willing suspension of disbelief. So the audience, when they pay for the ticket, agrees. They make an agreement to regard you. Let's say you're playing Lady Macbeth. That when you walk out on the stage, Anne, that they're going to regard you as if you were Lady Macbeth, and that they are observing Lady Macbeth go through these actions. But at no time do they literally think that you are not Anne Ganguza in a funny hat. I mean, that's how I describe actors in performance. Yeah. It's you in a funny hat, or you with a funny voice, or you whatever. You haven't transformed into Lady Macbeth. You physically can't do that. You're not embodying Lady Macbeth. There's nothing to embody. There is no Lady Macbeth to embody. As Mamet puts it, there is no character. There are only lines on a page. So what's happening here? Because let's take the example of an audience member who cannot suspend their disbelief. Let's say you're up on the stage and you have a niece in the audience who is 2 years old, and Aunt Anne is up on the stage. And then there's another person on the stage who knows you, who has some sort of profound mental or learning difference. Maybe they're profoundly autistic or something like that. And these two populations are unable, in many cases, to suspend their disbelief when they're in the audience at a play. So when you walk out on the stage in your funny hat, everyone in the audience is regarding you as Lady Macbeth, but these two are not. And when something happens to you, let's say something violent happens to you on stage, the rest of the audience may gasp at the drama of it, but the young child or the person with the profound learning difference may scream or may rush the stage, kind of like the little boy does at the end of Parenthood and Steve Martin, or with Parenthood with Steve Martin, that he rushes the stage because he can't suspend his disbelief. So if character can't be created by the actor for these people, then character cannot be created by the actor. That character is something that the audience imagines in a when they agree to suspend their disbelief and watch you do what you do, which then raises the final and most important question: if I'm not creating character, then what is that thing that I do? And that's the thing I've sort of spent years trying to find a way to put it into concrete terms, and then create a method around it. And that's what we're going to hash out in, among other things, we're going to hash out in the workshop.
Well, that's great. I mean, it just seems like it all makes a whole lot of logical sense to me now that you've explained it like that. And I am super interested to find out the method around it, because a lot of times I think voice actors were told, to be the character, to embody the character, and to make it believable. And a lot of times in my own head, where I may not say anything to whoever's coaching me, I'll be like, okay, well, how do I even do that? Like, what are this, how do I even take the steps? So I'm super excited that you're going to be talking about a concrete method, because I think that's going to really help us all to be better at what we do. And that's amazing. So I have a couple of people in the audience here. Let me just, I can actually show Eva, who is a huge fan of you, and Crispin Freeman. You guys have any questions? Feel free to post in the comments. Let's see, I'm looking through. Hi, Sean. Sean Daly's here.
Hi, Sean.
Diana is here.
Hi, Diana.
You guys have any, Franklin is here. Franklin Millerbaum is here. You guys have any questions? Hi, Tiffany. Tiffany's here as well. You guys have any questions? I hope you're going to join us on September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we get 4 hours with this brilliant man. Oh, I'm so excited. This is why I host these things, by the way, guys. This is my secret that I host these things, because I'm just big fans of everybody that I have, like, hosting my workshops. I mean, so it's good. It's awesome for me. It's even better for you guys. We are already over halfway sold. So if you guys want to get in with this guy and let's learn a concrete method that I think is going to be amazing for all of us, make sure that you sign up at the vopeeps.com webpage. I think Diana's going to post that link. And as I said, we are over halfway sold. So in terms of participation spots, there are not that many left. We also have just auditing spots if you want to just listen to the brilliance of Zach as he comes to us on Saturday, September 22nd from 10 to 2. This will be, by the way, guys, a Zoom class, I should say. A lot of times I do live and Zoom. It's just going to be Zoom because he's not coming to LA. I'm sad, but he's going to be in Atlanta. So I'll try to get him if he ever comes to LA, right? I'll try to get him next time he comes. Diana's going to be there. Oh, here we go. So let's see. Franklin has a comment. The limits of the life experience of the audience control the degree of making the character is a question.
Wow, that's intense, Franklin.
Yeah.
All right, let me look at this before it fades off the screen. The limits of the life experience of the audience control the degree of making the character. Well, first, wow, let me see if I can dismantle that and then reassemble it into something useful. Because I'm not giving you an answer from like my bank of answers to questions that have been posed to me. This has never been posed to me, so I'm going to try to assemble the answer as I go, or an answer. First off, you are performing the actions behind the microphone with your voice, or on stage with your voice and body, or in front of the camera that you are performing. The audience takes those in, and then the audience necessarily must run it through a filter, an intellectual and experiential. I mean, a filter of of their own experience, how their brain is wired, and how their experiences and education and cultural influences have constructed that filter. So I would say that I would say that yes, but okay, no, actually, let me say no. Let me turn it 5 degrees though. You use the word limits of life experience, and it controls the degree of making the character. I just want to kind of reframe it with slightly different words and say that the sort of unique and idiosyncratic quality of each individual's experience who's taking in your performance will certainly affect the outcome of how that audience member views, is affected by, and thinks about your work, which will include your actions and how they might describe the character or think of the character, as well as the unique and idiosyncratic life experience and paradigms of not just individuals, but cultural groups who might take in the same performance. So like, I directed Clyburn Park a few years ago, which is an imagined sequel to Raisin in the Sun. A fabulous play. And, liberal audience members and conservative audience members may have different takeaways from the play, as long as it's not directed to be a kind of propagandist piece, which it could be. White audience members might have a very different experience or takeaway of the play and the characters within it than African-American audience members would. because it deals with issues of race. And I know, one of the pivotal characters, if you're familiar with Raising the Sun, is Mr. Lindner, and Mr. Lindner appears in Clyburn Park. Mr. Lindner in Raising the Sun is usually portrayed as kind of a clownish, sort of bumblingly ignorant figure, and is accidentally insulting and patronizing to the family in Raising in the Sun. But in Clyburn Park, he makes a point, even though he's kind of seen as this unlikable, difficult person. He makes a point about this African-American family moving into his suburban neighborhood that is worth considering. And one is that I would like for, and yes, he uses the term, those people. I would like for those people to be able to have the lives they want to have and live in the places they want to live. But I don't make the kind of money that you all make. I've invested my life in this house, and if my property values go down, how much am I expected to pay for them to have the life they want to live? Is it going to cost me $50,000 to do what you think is the right thing? And it's a question that's worth considering, because that may be the entirety of his savings, and in the play he has a pregnant wife. And it forces us to consider all these different things and look at the character differently. So one person may think, well, yes, you have to do the right thing. And another person who has a mortgage, has kids, and has had to make difficult, those kinds of difficult choices, might go, well, Mr. Lindner in this situation is a much more sympathetic and understandable character in a very difficult predicament. So yes, but not about limits and degree, more about uniqueness of paradigm affects interpretation, takeaway, and your thoughts and feelings about a particular character. While the actor on stage or behind the microphone is doing the exact same thing for everybody. That's another thing to consider about whether or not actors create character. If what the actor created was something that everyone took in the same way, I don't know, I might be able to make a better argument for this idea of actors creating character. But I think that the lion's share of the work is really done by the audience, which again brings us back to the question, if creating character is not what I do, then what is it that I do?
Yeah. I know, for me as an actor, I want to be able to have an impact. I'd like to have a profound impact. You know what I mean? And I think is that not a combination of the writing, my interpretation of the character, and then also the audience as well? It's like a big circle of like components.
Yeah. And I would argue that the writer creates characters, or better, or perhaps more so, the writer writes dialogue.
Right.
You assemble the dialogue into opinions about this imaginary person who might be speaking these lines, but still what the writer does is writes dialogue in a play or for a video game or whatever, and constructs a narrative and all that stuff. But if I create a character, then I should be able to do it right now. The same way if you said, put on a hat, I should be able to put on a hat, or go pick up that pillow on the couch over there. I can pick up the pillow. If I say create a character, what many voice actors will do is they'll put on a funny voice. They'll modify their voice. So did you create a character, or you modulate, or are you modifying the shape of your vocal tract?
Right.
The shape of your accent. Well, literally, you're modifying the shape of your vocal tract and adopting a different accent.
Oh, I lost my sound. Diana, did you lose sound by chance? Hopefully it might just be my AirPods. No? Did you guys lose sound?
Chickadee check.
Well, it could just be me. Let's hope it's just me. But I am going to say, Zach, thank you so much. And Franklin, thanks you as well. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time. Oh my God, this is such wonderful stuff already. I can't wait for 3 weeks. So you guys, again, if you want to sign up for that, it is on September 22nd from 10 to 2. That is Pacific time. Make sure you sign up there and get in before we fill up. And Zach, thank you so very much for taking the time this morning, close to this afternoon for you. And I can't wait to see you in 3 weeks.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for having me, Anne, and nice talking to all of you.
Thanks, guys.